This podcast is hosted by Sheza Barbour, co-founder of Good Tree Institute, and joined by licensed therapist Archie Aquino and our resident scholar and founder, Dr. Nadia Qatranji.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Timeless Conversations with Good Tree Institute. We are continuing the story with Surah Yusuf, and right now we are at the point where there's the conversation that's taking place between the sons of Yaqoob and Yaqoob himself when they come back to their dad with the news that, what Yusuf has ordered them to do. So we're going to just pick back up from the story and see where it takes us. Dr. Nadia, do you want to?
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, let's get started. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So just to recall in ayah 81, ayahs 81 and 82, this is where they basically came back to their dad when Yusuf alayhi salam held the brother, and even the older brother didn't leave. So you have now the 9 brothers coming back, and they came just giving the reasons that this is what happened. If you recall, this is what happened, and there's nothing that we could do, and you can get all the testimonies and all the proofs that we are telling the truth and all of that. So, they were trying to really hold their case that it's not, we couldn't do much about it, and we're really truthful this time. So listen to how Yaqoob alayhi salam responded. It's very interesting to see. We're going to look at this conversation from both aspects, from the brothers, and see what we can get out of it from there. And we're going to look at it also from Yaqoob alayhi salam. We're going to focus on that, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قال, so Yaqoob said, he said, بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا. You're giving me all of these answers and you're giving me all of these things, but really in reality, rather, سولت. Remember, we had this word in the beginning. Sawala denotes relaxation in a thing. So when yourselves have basically lured you in, enticed you in to do that, it kind of like eased it for you, a matter. قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا. Rather, he said, rather, yourselves have enticed you, have lured you into a matter. There's a matter that's going on. Notice, despite the fact that this time they were telling the truth, he's saying the same thing to them. There's something here that we really want to distinguish. What do you think? I mean, let's just look at it right there and then. Why is he saying that, despite the fact that they're telling the truth?
He still doesn't really trust them.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, there is the lack of trust from one end, and there's the other end, which is basically they're still the same. Their mentality is the same.
Yeah.
So he's calling that out. Hey, listen, you're still doing the same thing. I don't care what you're saying, but in reality, you don't even care about him. You don't even care about your brothers. It's still all about you. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So look what he says. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So may Allah give me a sabr. So I have a sabr. Sabara is to hold or to restrain. To be tough, and it's the top of something. So it's kind of like something that's really, you have the capacity to go all the way. That's the word that we use for patience. And I would even say endurance or perseverance. Perseverance would be the more powerful word. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So I have a beautiful perseverance and patience. عسى الله أن يأتيني بهم جميعا. Maybe, hopefully, perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring them all to me. So why he's saying all? It's not only Yusuf and his brother, but it's also the eldest one. So there are 3 of them now who are who are not with him. إنه هو العليم الحكيم. He is definitely the one who is all-knowing and all-wise. He knows. I trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows why things are happening this way, and he has the wisdom of why things are happening and going in that course. So then what Yaqoob alayhi salam did is وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. He just turned away from them. So notice, he didn't argue. He didn't go back and forth. He didn't ask, like, okay, tell me the details. Just like he left them. Because again, there's that part in him that he knows there's something wrong in how they are approaching this whole thing. وقال, and he said, يا أسفا على يوسف. يا أسفا, I grieve. Alas, my grief over Yusuf. وبيضت عيناه من الحزن. فهو كظيم وابيضت عيناه, his eyes became white out of grief. Some people say that this is kind of like denoting cataract, right? He became blind, he couldn't see anymore. فهو كظيم, then he is كظم. It means to withhold and gather things. So he's really withholding all of his sorrow inside him. He's suppressing it. He's putting his sorrow inside him. وَابْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. So now the brothers respond. قالوا, they said, تَاللَّهِ تَفْتَأُ تَذْكُرُ يُوسُف. By God, you continue to mention Yusuf?
Yeah.
What does this remind you of? Like, you're still talking about Yusuf?
Yeah, how long's it been? It's been so many years.
Like, yeah, and as if he's like, we did this whole thing, and eliminated Yusuf from our lives so that you can focus on me, on us. And here you go, Yusuf is still the center of your focus.
Yeah. It's just, it's such a descriptive situation that Allah puts in the Quran, because you can feel the pain, and you can feel it on both sides. You can feel the pain of Yaqoob as he literally turns his back on his kids and is just in grief. And yet how that just throws and pisses off the brothers even more. And it's like, you're still talking about that guy.
Yep.
Yeah, they sound triggered.
They sound triggered, right? Yeah, it's like you know how you when you live in a way where all of your life you're kind of like trying to get something, and at one point you realize that all of that pursuit didn't reach you to where you need to reach. You know, you feel, I know myself, there are certain times where I was pursuing, like, I need to prove this, I need to prove this, I need to prove this. And you reach to a point just like, oh my God, all of that work that I've done, I wasn't able to reach to my goal. It's, you realize how futile it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
you just described perfectionism. That's the downside of being a perfectionist. You never achieve it.
You never.
But the interesting thing here is that, like, the story here was with the sons is that they're still reliving this internal mindset and story that they created about their dad, that they're not good enough, that you're always favoring Yusuf this, Yusuf that. And it's something that they created, that was never there. If we go back to our, we talked about this in the start of the surah, is that, nothing happened. There was no trauma. But they have this story in their head that our dad just doesn't like us.
Yeah, they gathered some evidence, right? Some things that Yaqoob alayhi salam did what he did with his son, and then they made it that he doesn't care about us, and they lived this reality. It became their reality, and it took them into action, if you remember when we talked about it. And it's still their reality until now. They see everything from the spectrum of, they have a kind of like what we call it a not enough something. For them, it's like our dad does not give us enough attention. And no matter what he does, despite the fact that Yusuf is not there, they're still seeing the same thing. It's not enough. There is not enough of that attention.
Yeah. So, I have a question to Archie as a, therapist and counselor, and you, Dr. Nadia, is like, how would the brothers, or if you're in this situation or know somebody, how do you ever know that you have enough attention? Like, how do you know? How do the brothers know that they finally have enough from their dad?
That is a hard question to answer, because it's a subjective kind of opinion of what anyone thinks is enough. It's kind of elusive. And really, why do you need someone else's attention so much is the bigger question. Like, what's that about?
Yeah. Yeah, and I from my experience with myself, the work that I did, as we said, like, this is what we're doing, is the tazkiyah aspect, the purification. When you have this perspective, it's never going to be fulfilled. Going back to what you said about perfection, I really seen it with myself. This is kind of like you're drinking from the ocean. And the more you drink, the more you want. You will never feel satisfied. you will never have that satisfaction. And the moment you feel that you reach to something, you feel, oh, that's not good enough. I need to get to the next one. I need to have more of that. That's not what I'm looking for. Because perfection is not real, So there's that constant ask for it. This is a hard point to grasp, but it's so, like, we all as human beings have one aspect of that, kind of like the not enough but fill in the blank. We all have that. We develop something, it's just like, okay, and then your psyche is constantly pursuing it. For me, it was like, I am not valuable enough. I am not learned enough. I am not, that all of just like important enough. All of these kinds of things kept dragging me. Just like, I have to prove that I am. I have to prove that I am. And I constantly kept chasing that all my life, to realize at one point, like, I did all of this and really, I didn't accomplish what I was saying I wanted. It just like, although I did so much, but it never felt enough.
Yeah. The bigger question is, when you ask, how much is enough, are you trying to get something from somebody else? Like, how do you know if you're going to get enough from that person? And that's where the focus is kind of, it's wrong, because if you're always trying to get something from someone else to feel enough, now you're giving all your worth to that person to determine.
So true. So true. And to be honest with you, even if people tell you, you don't believe them. It's so interesting. It's like, no, you don't understand. What in my head, the enough in my head is like so and so. Like I would remember, like I would see some certain women or certain people, just like, okay, oh my God, like look at her. She's my age and look what she's done and I haven't done this. And Jamal, my husband, would look at me, just like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? You don't understand. I had it. It's the enough is, it has a certain shape and form for me. And it's not, it has to fit that particular shape. I mean, if it's not that exact shape, then I'm not enough.
But it's based on an external concept of what it looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you have one like that, Archie?
Everyone has some sort of inadequacy thing from their childhood, right? And I always felt like I needed to, this is like such a stereotype, but all the Asians will relate. Like, you had to have straight A's, or you were worthless. If you straight A's was status quo, and if you came home with anything but an A, then your parents were going to ask you why you didn't get an A. So that kind of drummed into my head, like, if you're not perfect, you don't get the A's, you don't have the love of the parents, you don't have the approval, the validation. And it took a long time and a lot of work to figure out, like, I don't need those things to tell myself I'm enough, and that was a big shift for me, was being able to let go of all these external measures and metrics of what enough is, so that I can just be myself and let me, and not be perfect and fail sometimes and try things and just be a human being and not be stressed out about it. I'm like, that's a huge shift to go from my enough is outside of me to my enough is inside of me.
Yeah. I mean, I do want to also notice that I think a lot of what we sometimes notice in other people, or sometimes I'm even seeing this in the story of the sons of Yaqoob, is that when they feel like they have enough, like they got their full attention of this person, right? Like, you got them. Then they start having fear that somebody or others are going to take it away from them, and they're going to lose this. And so then this fear becomes their motivation for their behavior, and it becomes, and sometimes obsessive, like kind of crazy.
Yeah, it can justify a lot of dark stuff in order to keep what you have. And this reminds me of Yoda from Star Wars, when he talks about, if you have too much fear, it's bad because it leads to anger, when you're feeling like you're losing something, and then the anger leads to hate. And that's when you justify doing anything necessary in order to keep what you wanted, or that sense of enough.
Yep. Yeah, that aspect also brings another point that's extremely important. And I remember I encountered with many people where it's like, because all of this is coming from a trigger. Like somebody said to you, oh, you can't do this. Oh, you're not, and all what you're trying to do is you have this fire in you. You want to prove them wrong, or you want to prove that you can. For me, that was the case. So it's like, I need to prove to all these people that I can do this. A lot of us, for instance, Muslim women particularly, it's like, I have to prove that I am able to do this. So for a lot of people think that this is a good thing because it's actually fueling your success. It's what has you be always working and always on the run and always really productive. And what's wrong with that? A lot of people would inquire, what's wrong with being like this? There's no problem. It's okay to be like that. Why not? Fine. If it caused you to be triggered, fine. I mean, some parents actually do that on purpose to light that fire in their kids and let them be like that. And to keep doing, just like, that's not enough. You're not good enough. How do you, going back to the grades that you mentioned. So what's wrong with that?
Whoa. Well, in the short term, it works. I mean, it does get people to be empowered and motivated to do something, and they're really energetic about it. But in the long term, it has a lot of negative consequences. There's a point where that constant source of fuel, being anger, becomes detrimental. It becomes a negative thing. You're so easily triggered. You're so easily to snap on people. You're so easy to be manipulated. You're so easily dysregulated, because anger is what you're feeding off of. So it becomes your whole persona, in a sense.
It becomes toxic. I mean, it doesn't sound healthy. It doesn't sound light. It doesn't sound something you like. These are not the type of people you really want to be hanging around with, does it? After a while, you're just like, this is exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like you need a fire that is constructive, not destructive. You want a fire. Yes. I do agree that there has to be this fire, but when you bring the fire from a good intention, from when we pair it with our reason why you're here, with our connection with Allah, it's actually a light fire that warms, that brings up construction and brings up more of building things rather than being something that takes away everything. And we see this a lot in corporate world where, I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and I've heard it from a lot of people where people, because of competition, they stab each other in the back. They would talk badly about each other so that they can take their position. They can wipe them out. It is real. That's what's happening, in high-end places. So you do want that fire, but learn how to ignite it the right way so it's healing for you and for others rather than it being destructive. You want something to keep you productive and pursuing it, but do it for the right reason. Do it for a reason that has you genuinely doing it for the cause, not for you to prove something or to be enough, because you're never, ever going to get to the aspect of feeling enough. Yeah. Never.
Yeah. And the people who want to exploit you, they really pick up on that. The ones who really want to take advantage of you, they see that kind of insecurity, and they say, okay, yeah, if you do this, then I'll love you, or then you'll be validated in some way. And then when you do that, they move the goalpost a little bit more, and then they keep on moving it and getting you to do a little bit more. And you're running in circles, chasing this external, this validation from outside, this enough, and it can ruin it. It can rule you.
I mean, I just want to take a pause here and ask some of the questions that we usually ask at the end to the audience, because we want to also move along and talk about, Yaqoob and his answers and his perspective on the situation. But so before we move to Yaqoob, we want everyone to just take a moment of reflection and journaling. And just reflect yourself. What is that thing that you feel like you don't have enough of? That you feel like you're constantly going after to fill in that I need more to be enough of? Also, what's that one thing that keeps coming up that you keep saying or others keep saying to you about being enough, or things that trigger you. I know we've talked about those things in the past of just like, again, think about the triggers. Like here, the sons were triggered.
Yusuf. Again with Yusuf.
Exactly. So what is it for you? What are your triggers? I guess that's another way of putting it. And, thinking along those lines is, just delve into that and peel the onion within yourself of like, what is this all about? Like, is this something external? Or what is it connecting to you on an internal level? What are these triggers? Like, are you, getting triggered? Or are you going after something externally to please other people, to see, almost like seeking validation from others? And how is it affecting you internally? So just take a pause and put yourself in the position of the sons, right? And their reaction right now. Because we're going to shift and focus on Yaqoob, and then have you put yourself in his shoes and his reaction.
Can I add just one thing? Just speaking, especially if you are a parent, I just want to add this point. Remember, we said that a lot of times you feel you need to do this push to get your child to feel not enough so that they can have that fire. Really, if you are in the position of a parent, think not, this is short term, this is faster and easier, but it doesn't go, it really hurts. Find other ways to motivate them and to add that fire in them, but in a genuine way. Look at how can you have that intention be so genuine and real in them, and let them be connected to a cause. Like what is it that you want to do to really like have their focus be on others, on making that that being the source of healing and a gift, rather than just like, oh, you need to be enough, So if you're a parent, add that aspect and look at it and really it would be a huge contribution that you do to your kids.
Awesome. That's a good point, Dr. Nadia.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to shift and let's talk about Yaqoob and his response and how he deals with the situation?
Okay, let's go. Inshallah, let's just, I'm going to share with you the Quran. So if you recall, the last thing we said about Yaqoob, peace be upon him, if you want to go back, when he said to them, I'm going to have a beautiful patience, and he turns away. And he was still, remember the ayah in ayah is 83 and 84, he was still grieving, right? He was crying so much to the point that he actually had his eyes, he couldn't see anymore. And he was holding in that sorrow. And they said to him, oh, you're continuing to mention Yusuf. They say, قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ تَفْتَأُ تَذْكُرُ Yusuf. You're continuing to mention Yusuf. So we paused here because we wanted to talk about their perspective. But then they say, حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا, until you become almost fatally ill. You become so ill, أو تكون من الهالكين, or you be among the ones who perish. You're gonna die. You're gonna keep still talking about Yusuf. So now we're looking at it from his perspective. Yaqoob is being impacted by this, and they were so scared that, hey, that's gonna hurt you. But look what he says. قال, Yaqoob answered. He said, إنما أشكو, I only. Innama is like only or merely. Ashku from shakawa. Shakawa is to deal with a pain due to something. So that's why the word shakawa or shikaya is complaint. I complain. Innama ashku, I only complain. There is a pain that I'm sending. Bathi wa huzni. Bathi is my suffering. So where it's coming from is the word bathatha, it's scatter and reveal something. So it's kind of like it's all over the place. So that's when somebody is hurt, it's just like it's gonna show up. It's gonna go all over, right? That's how we deal with as human beings. If something is hurting us, it just goes across everybody. So he says, I'm only complaining that hurt that's so obvious, that's out, my suffering, وحزني, and my grief and my sadness, إلى Allah, to God. قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. He said, I only complain my suffering and my grief to Allah. وأعلم من الله ما لا تعلمون. And I know from Allah what you do not know. We want to get back to this. And I know from Allah what you do not know. And then he says, look what he says. Ya baniya, oh my sons. So they were talking to him kind of like, okay, well, what's your situation? Now look, he goes back and he looks at them and he talks to them. This is a very important element. Ya baniya, oh my sons, go, اذهبوا, go. فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه. So تحسس is to overcome something. Like it's, and one of the meanings that's used in other places in the Quran is kind of to kill. Another meaning is to have a senses. Or so تحسسوا is to go and inquire, like kind of like use your senses to inquire. Go and inquire about Yusuf and his brother. يا بني and his brother. يا بني يذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه ولا تيأسوا من روح الله. And do not despair. Do not despair. من روح الله. Of روح comes from روحة, which is denotes vastness and regularity and constancy. It's also the meaning of wind. It's the meaning that we use for the word soul, the ruh. So rawh over here is more of that opening, or of that something that comes from Allah. Rawhillah, from the opening and resolve from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. Definitely, no one has despair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the opening of Allah, except the ones who are إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, except the ones who cover the truth, who are in a state of disbelief of who Allah is. There is an element that I'm not clear about Allah. So let's get into this. There's a lot here to really delve into.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand it to you, Shazad, if you want to kind of like look at
there's a lot to unpack in just his response, right? And I think one of the first one is just going back to his initial comment that he makes, is that he says that he has a beautiful patience, right? And we hear the story a lot, we read the story a lot, but what does that actually mean? What does it look like to have beautiful patience when you're going through something big, or problems or suffering and grief or anything? Like, can you guys, Archie and Dr. Nadia, can you share like kind of what, if Yaqoob's our example, what does that actually look like for us, practically speaking?
Yeah, I didn't have much on this until I started studying Islam. Well, without Islam, patience was just patience. Like, whether it's beautiful or not didn't really matter. But it's really kind of nice that Islam points out there's a distinction here.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's so true. It's, to me, and the first thing that comes to mind when I hear the word beautiful patience, well, if it's not beautiful, then what is it? You know what I mean? Like, what does a patience that's not beautiful look like? How do I see that? And there's a distinction between patience being beautiful versus being not beautiful. Because you can have it, but there's something that goes with that. You're still holding on to it. It reminds me of something. Yeah, go ahead, Archie.
No, it's just like in when a secular way, patience could be just biting your tongue, as they say. You're just holding it in, and you want to say it, but you're not going to say it, and you think that's patience.
Yeah. It reminded me of when I run. So one time I was running, and there's these bikers that were coming, and one of them from behind, from the back, right? He's not seeing my face. He's just like seeing, and he just said something as he was passing by. She's like, "You can run and enjoy it, And that was it. I was like, whoo! It was like somebody slapped me in the face. And I really, until this day, I truly appreciate that. And I wish I could see him again to say thank you, because I start thinking, like, what is it that is like, how am I running that it seems so I'm suffering? It's just like my body language was showing that I'm suffering. Whereas you can actually, and I start practicing, just like relax, don't tense up. It's very easy for me to be tense. Right? Just to relax yourself, and sure enough, that start making a huge difference in enjoying it. And any moment I start feeling the pain, it's like, okay, just let yourself relax, and you can take in because it does take endurance, to do this activity. So that's where, to me, it just rung something. You can go through it with feeling that you just have to keep holding on tight until you go through it, or you can let that go through you and be. And there's a huge difference between them.
Yeah. it just reminded me of when I have anger management clients, or even sometimes parents who are struggling with their kids. They can say the most correct things that you're supposed to say, but you can tell that they have this anger that is still there, and it messes up the whole delivery of what they're trying to accomplish. So they're saying the right words, but everything else gets screwed up, and they still sound aggressive. And I think that's what like a not beautiful patience looks like.
Yeah. Whereas beautiful, if you look at Yaqoob alayhi salam, is exemplifying and embodying what it looks like. I mean, first notice how, for instance, when he's talking to his sons, he's still being able to convey to them what he needs to convey. There is action. Notice how he told them, go do things. There's an action that's happening, right? He's doing something. He's not kind of like sitting there passively. So being passive is not a beautiful patience. If you're just sitting there and you're not finding a way to get out of it, is not a beautiful patience. And I've seen people in my life who are amazing, mashallah. I mean, I'm encountering someone right now who's like really had a very, very hard encounter, and she's constantly trying to find a way for her. She's like, how can I basically move past it? What's my next step? And she would reach out. She's like, okay, that's another thing. I'm stuck here. I'm unable to see it differently. How can I shift this? That's another thing. You really reach out. A beautiful patience. You need to do something.
So that brings another question then, because at Yaqoob also says, I only complain to Allah, right? So how do we address that today in our society, just in general? Like, when do we complain? When do we share? When do we not? Like, it feels like a tug of war here between these two concepts.
Yeah, I've heard this in the community. People say, I don't go to mental health services because I'm only supposed to complain to Allah. And I don't talk about my problems to anyone because I'm supposed to complain to only Allah. And I don't think that's what it really means.
Totally. 100%. Yeah, 100%. See, that's the thing. The thing is, a lot of people think that if you say a word or if you say anything, then that means you're not having beautiful patience and you should only complain to Allah. And it's true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who never gets tired of your complaint. He wants to hear your complaint. But that doesn't mean that sometimes you do need to talk to somebody. Sometimes, but you have to have a good choice. Sometimes people just, when you go around and you just like keep talking to everybody and complaining, and you're scattering it everywhere, that's not beautiful. But find the person who actually can listen to you. Even if you just want to say, somebody who can relieve you and give you a real listening so that you can feel that ease of a pain. Or maybe, as you said, you might need to go to someone who can give you that therapy, so you can reach to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to interject and just remind everybody that beautiful patience. This isn't about being silent in front of abuse, right? That we just have to remind her that you need to get the help and reach out when there's questions or concerns of safety. But this is more of like, just the general complaining.
Exactly. So beautiful patience doesn't mean that you don't reach out if you really need somebody to listen to you. It does not mean that you don't actively do something if there is an actual hurt or an actual thing that needs to be taken care of. And it doesn't mean that you don't move forward. Definitely.
So
if we want to, go ahead.
What about, along with this, I've heard people tell their family, just pray more, and talk to Allah more. And I think maybe the prayers, they are helpful, but it depends on what you're praying for. I think people have a kind of a passive approach to prayer sometimes, and they're not really seeking for like guidance. They're not seeking for Allah to put them in places or in touch with people who can help them. They're just saying, help me, and that's kind of passive.
That's so true. And I would add to what you're saying in terms of, it's really not only about praying, it's about how you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because here, if you recall the last ayah that we did, where Sayyidina Yaqoob was saying in the ayah, do not have despair from the opening of unresolved that Allah can bring. The only ones who do that are the ones who have an aspect of disbelief. So because the extremely important aspect here is that, do I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is in control in these situations? Do I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a better knowledge and He is the all wise in these situations? If my perspective that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not hold a full, like He's not the omnipotent, He can do anything, then that's where the shift needs to happen. I need to know who Allah is. So it's more, the pray is more about get to know Allah. Get to connect with Him, get to trust Him, get to know that He is on your side. And if He's delaying things and if He's having things to happen, maybe because He wants to divert you to Him. Maybe because He wants to hear your voice so you can get closer to Him. We really have to get the aspect that there's a huge connection. When He corners us in these situations, it's because He wants us to come close to Him, because He wants us to be a little bit in focus. Because we are so distracted, and these kinds of situations are times where we actually sit down and we have an ability to focus and to pray. So it's not just pray, but it's really, who is Allah for you?
Agreed. You know, and also just the reminder that there is healing in these, like spiritual healing in what Allah's told us to do, right? In the dhikr, in the connection, these ways to connect to Allah, right? Is like in doing the dhikr and reading Quran. And like we need to be able to pair what is in our spiritual healing with Allah with today, if you need to, talking to therapists and mental health, counselors when you need to, right? Is being able to join the two and not think that it's one or the other all the time.
Yeah, definitely. It's both. It has to be both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to kind of also make sure that we're clear on the last ayah, the aspect of despair. This is an extremely important point. This is actually a sign that you have a beautiful patience. When you don't have despair, when you keep moving, and you keep doing what you have to do, even if you're not clear that your action is going to be directly causing the reason, you do what is occurring to you that this is the right thing to do. It's going to get somewhere. This is extremely important. The sign of thinking, okay, this is what it is, I can never do anything about it, and I'm done. That's a sign of not knowing Allah and of rejecting and denying who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. This is, as I said, I can't emphasize on this enough. For me, and I'm saying it with passion because that was a huge shift for me. I would feel that I'm stuck and there's nothing I could do, and I just like sit there passively. Whereas if you know who your God is, who your Rabb is, if you know Him, there is no despair with knowing who Allah is. There is an opening that's going to be created. This is the lesson that we learned from Yaqoob alayhi salam.
Absolutely.
He doesn't want you to stay there. He doesn't want you to despair and just wallow and limit yourself and be stuck. I don't think that's the intention.
Absolutely. So I wanted to summarize kind of just the three elements that we've talked about in terms of what does that beautiful patience look like, and how do we model it after, Prophet Yaqoob. So in summary, it's, asking the right people, to talk to, like you're talking to the right people, the people that you trust. Number two is that you're seeking a way out continuously for yourself and you're in action, that you don't have that despair. You're working on it. You're working on the opening. You're trying to find it. And then thirdly, strengthening that connection with Allah and know that there is healing in that connection as well.
Yeah. And isn't it so beautiful to see how Yaqoob alayhi salam modeled what it looks like to be a human being and to be somebody who's connected to Allah? Because a lot of the times we think that you can't be both. You can either be fully connected and you just have no sorrow, no sadness, nothing. You can't have these feelings. Or if you have these feelings, then you can't have connection. He's just showing us the actual marriage between your psyche and your humanity and between your connection.
I love it. It's like,
I think it's mind blowing. I don't think a lot of people think you can have both. Like it's always a zero-sum game. Either or. I'm going to have all faith and no despair, or, they just can't think, oh, I can have both. I can be a human being who has feelings and emotions and still trust Allah.
Yep. So, questions to the audience as we wrap up this session and this episode to think about now, putting yourself in the position of Yaqoob and, as kind of our role model. Think about the times when you are in a struggle. What kind of patience do you have? Identify, look at that internally and identify where you think you're at when it comes to beautiful patience as it's being modeled. Do you find yourself, number one, just talking to everyone about your problems and issues? You're just picking up the phone, you're talking to your neighbors, you're talking to everybody? Or are you, number two, a person that just is suffering in silence and thinking that this is patience? This is what it's supposed to look like? Or three, do you find the right people that you trust that can help you get out of that situation? So think about that, kind of see where you are on that spectrum. And then along the same lines, it brings up of, what are you actually doing to relieve yourself of your pain and your problem? Are you being actively, pursuing an opening? Are you actively working on relieving this suffering for yourself? Are you also simultaneously calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and working on your connection with Allah to help you find the opening and also find that healing within Allah, from Him, to kind of ease that suffering and ease the pain that you're enduring? So there's a number of questions that we wanted you to journal and think about. One from the perspective of, the sons of Yaqoob, but then also then flipping it and putting yourself in the position of Yaqoob and seeing where do you, because all of us encounter these different situations, right, in life. You're going to act like the sons of Yaqoob at certain times in life, and other times you might find yourself acting like Yaqoob himself. So think about both situations and where you are and how you deal with these problems in life. And inshallah, we'll continue. We're almost wrapped up with the surah, so inshallah we'll see you again at our next episode as we finish off the surah, the story of Surah Yusuf. Jazakallahu khair.
If you like listening to our conversation about the Quran, imagine how much more you would get out of participating in a live conversation about the Quran with Dr. Nadia and a room full of people engaging with the Quran. Join us at our next in-person Seeds of Wisdom retreat, online with our weekly Quran and Me sessions, or for the youth at one of our Camp Z retreats.